Thank you for being on the Guin Huddle and agreeing to do this. I guess so. It's almost been a year since we first met, and you came into Gwyn with a specific vision of merging the world of music marketing and artist wellness together into what became the title VP of Artist Wellness and Marketing. You also have your own wellness agency, the Lazuli Collective. So I'm excited to get into learning more about what brought you into the intersection of music and wellness. So I guess to start it off, how did you get into music, and was wellness something that you always prioritized, or it kind of came about more when you started working in the music industry?
Yeah. So I got into music at a very, very young age. I think definitely before I even knew what wellness was. My uncle and aunt are in the industry. My uncle on the performing side, similar to our beloved Michael Bearden. My uncle is a musical director. So I got to see the industry sort of like through his eyes of, you know, him conducting, orchestrating, arranging music and performing at the Apollo Theater in New York. But it wasn't until he married my aunt, who was a marketing and promotional executive at Sony and ASCAP. And once I saw that I didn't need to be a trained professional prodigy musician to be in the industry, and I could work on the marketing side, be in an office, and work with artists in different ways. That's what sparked my interest in really pursuing this career. So I started interning. I think my first internship, I mean, technically, I was like helping out my uncle at gigs and stuff when I was like 10. But then once I was in high school over the summers, and then my senior year of high school, we had the option to like intern in exchange for some of like your like final high school credits. And so um, I think my first internship was like at a technically like a PR company, but then I started working for this manager named Kedar Massenberg, who used to be an executive at Motown. He sort of coined the term neo soul. He used to manage the artist Joe. He worked with Angie Stone. He did some early like Erica Badu. So he was just like in that sort of like R&B neo soul world, and I was helping him out. And then I went over to Bad Boy and was working with P Diddy's team, and it was then that experience that like really opened my eyes to wellness. And again, like didn't even know like what it was, but that was just like my first sort of like entry point into truly experiencing some of the hardships and the challenges of the music industry, whether you're dealing with different egos, you're dealing with grueling schedules, and almost like that hazing sort of like side of the
Yeah.
industry, which I feel like is phasing out. But I experienced it firsthand, and I was the youngest in the room. So after a couple more of those experiences at different labels, I pivoted into working in tech. Um, I started working at consumer electronics companies like Belkin and SanDisk, and then I transitioned to like consumer social apps like Snapchat, and then eventually at TikTok. But I knew that I wanted to like use tech and culture with music, and like that was going to be sort of like my sweet spot, and it worked out well until I hit this point where um, I realized that my whole identity, my whole like sense of self and being was wrapped into my job. um, there are even like friends that I still have now that like I'm still saved in their phone as like Brandon last name Belkin, because like
Yeah.
I was the guy at Belkin.
Mhm.
I was introducing myself as like, hey, I'm Brandon from Belkin. Is your
Right.
phone do you need a phone charger? Do you need an outlet? Like, and so that was my like calling card into events and stuff. And that got me like backstage with Kanye and backstage at Coachella. And, I use this transaction of like phone chargers and cords equals like access. And
Right.
then I leveraged that to Snapchat, and I was like leveraging all of the amazing things of Snapchat, the amazing product that it is, and that it definitely was back then. Um, and geo filters, I was like
Mhm.
trading geo filters for access. I was like, hey, like I'll drop a geo filter over your concert if you give me some tickets. And so it wasn't until I left Snapchat and suddenly I wasn't like emailing people from Brandon at Snapchat. It was just my personal Gmail account, and I wasn't getting nearly as many as responses as I was before.
Mhm.
And that like really took its toll on me, like because I was now sort of like outside looking in at the industry, and I wasn't able to get on as many RSVP lists and to festivals and just like the whole sort of like circuit. I was also going through a breakup at that time. Like I really didn't know who I was like anymore. Um, and it wasn't until I went to a music festival called Lightning in a Bottle. It's pretty much it's like a I feel like Lightning in a Bottle is like this in between of Coachella and Burning Man, where it's like this conscious sort of like spiritual new age festival that blends art and culture, and consciousness with the music and the talks and the programming. But it's not like you're in the middle of nowhere in the desert at Burning Man, stuck in the mud, having this like opening experience. You can use your credit card, get a kombucha, get an acai bowl. And
Yeah.
so I went there with a friend. I remember too, we were like being like, that's when I started being vegan too. I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go to this
Right.
festival and like I'm gonna eat like really clean. I want to like have this awakening there. And,
Yeah.
um, did a yoga class there, and I heard this talk from this guy named Seven Bomar, I think his name is, and he was just talking about Kundalini and this like energy Kundalini, and I feel like I heard the name before, but didn't really like stick until that festival. Did a Kundalini yoga class by this teacher named Jai Dev, who has now become like a kind of like a mentor to me. And I just had this like this opening experience where all of this like shame and guilt and frustration, anxiety, sort of just all the things that I was feeling at this time. And quite honestly, like the things that really brought me to the festival in the first place of like, okay, like I'm feeling really low. I want to go have this transformative experience at this festival. I didn't know it was going to come from doing this particular yoga class. I thought it was just going to come from dancing and sort of like forgetting all of my troubles, at this festival. But
Mhm.
it came during this yoga class, and I felt this lift. Um, and I was like, whoa, like that was wild. And sort of went on back, to doing the partying at the festival. But it wasn't until I got back home and I went on YouTube and then looked up the term again, Kundalini. I did a class on YouTube, just like in my apartment. And I felt all the same effects. I felt this like surge of energy sort of like rush through my body. My body actually sort of like locked up a bit, and like I didn't really know what was going on. I was just like, whoa, like this is crazy. And so then I went to a yoga studio, did a class, the same thing happened. Felt this like the rush of energy. I couldn't really contain it. And then I asked the teacher just like what was going on. She was explaining more of the process, more of um, how my sort of body and energy centers like weren't in complete alignment. So then like when the energy is like rushing through, it's getting blocked, and that's what's causing you to like lock up. Like you need to continue to stretch and exercise and breathe so you become more in alignment. So it's just like more of a flow.
Mhm.
And yeah, I became hooked. I started, deepening my meditative, my yoga practice, and what it really did, outside of just like feeling great, it returned me to what I feel like is like my true self and my true being, without ego, without programming, without the pressures of society, the pressures of this music industry to make us and make me feel at that time that like I had to be doing this a certain way, or I had to go to this event and network with these people. And if I didn't, then I'm a worthless person and human. So it just made me feel more comfortable with myself, made me feel more comfortable with what what is that I was transitioning, I was growing, I was learning. So I bounced around from like a couple jobs, and I then went back into the industry. I took a position at AWOL, like another independent label, and I remember like really consciously when I took that job, I was like, okay, like I'm about to put myself back in the belly of the beast,
Mhm.
where I'm now going to be interacting with artists again. I'm now going to be interacting with this industry in a new way, where I'm going to have to go to events and festivals and do the networking thing. But like, I need to do this differently, or I could get caught up in the same cycle that ultimately um, was like a perpetuating path of like internal self destruction with my sense of self and ego. So I was like, okay, like continue your yoga practice, continue to like develop this mindful side of you um, as you're still pursuing this like dual identity almost in the music industry. And I kept that side a little hidden
Mm.
um, until people, one, I also made the choice. I was like, I want to start a family. So I got married, I had a child. And even then I was like, okay, like, do I go out to this party, to this bar after work, or do I go home to spend time with my partner, to spend time with my son, to take care of my family? And you know, like I people then really started noticing this like I don't want to call it balancing act, but people just saw that like I was showing up differently
Yeah,
in the entertainment space. And people started asking more questions like, hey, like, how do you do this? Like, how do you handle the stress? How do you handle all of these challenges that you're going through with just like raising a family? Then the pandemic happened.
right,
So the more questions that people started asking, the more I then noticed that like, hey, like I'm not the only one who's struggling with these things. Um, Everybody in the world is, and a lot of people in entertainment are, but I think they're just like more quiet about it. So I just became just like a, a shoulder to lean on. And then it wasn't until like I noticed that, you know, um, I was like losing people to addiction, to suicide, and just like seeing sort of like the pitfalls of the industry was where I made the conscious decision to like really and intentionally blend both worlds, knowing that having wellness and mental health is like the it's what guarantees like the sustainability of this industry. I've seen so many people, including myself, burn out and hit the point where they're like, you know what, I'm done. Like
yeah,
after that one festival, after that one album rollout, they're like, I'm not doing this anymore. Um, but there's always something that, you know, brings us back or something that wants to bring us back because we have a love for music, we have a love for the art, we have a love for the artist. There's things about this industry that we all love and that are great. Um, like and it's, you know, touring, for instance, is amazing. Like we all love going to a live show. Working a tour and being an artist and traveling on tour, there's sides of it that just are really, really challenging. But there's something that keeps artists and keeps the teams going back year after year to like be on the road. So I wanted to find the ways in the systems to make things more, you know, sustainable. And so I was really still counted as a major blessing in my life to find a home and a label like Guin really, you know, puts a huge focus and emphasis on prioritizing the mental well-being of artists in the industry. looking at the landscape, there's very, very, very few labels who like truly put their money, where their mouth is, and take care of these things. So it's an honor to sort of like carve this path and this new uh, industry, this new way of thinking about how to have like a record business and how to work with artists in new ways. We call ourselves the artist friendly label. I think a lot of labels try to do that, but don't always know the means to actually do it. Are you just artist friendly because you have like really good financial terms? Are you
Right.
artist friendly because you like let your artists control and retain the ownership of their music and
Mhm.
the true spirit of independence? Or are you also artist friendly because like you truly care about the well-being of your artists and support them in ways that are just beyond what you're contractually sort of like obligated to? And I love that that's what we do here at Gwyn.
Yeah,
So
I think it's still
yeah.
hard for us to even like strike the balance of what it means to be artist friendly while still being a business that's, investing a lot of money in these artists and, you know, protecting the artists from also burning out, but also still kind of pushing them to, you know, be that 50-50 partner with us in, promoting their music, being, being that partner through it all with us. And so I guess with your title specifically, how do you strike that balance in being the VP of marketing that, kind of has to push and encourage artists to do things they might not want to do, whether it's creating content or putting themselves in, outside in scenarios that they might not be used to, but also kind of protecting their well-being at the same time.
Yeah. You know, you hit the head you hit the nail on the head when you said like we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to balance both sides. I'm trying to balance all of these sides, in my own life, and when it comes to the business, we're doing that every single day. And I think where it starts, what I've learned is it starts with like listening. It starts with empathy. I think even like when an artist is maybe telling you like, hey, I'm not feeling this, or I'm not able to post, you know, I try to first just like really listen to them, really hear everything that they have to say, be as like compassionate and empathetic to like what they're going through, and
Mhm.
then be able to speak from the business side of things, and not always even like one like try to meet in the middle, but after listening, digesting the things that they have to say, then speaking from this like place of, you know, this is sort of like what needs to happen for the benefit of yourself, like painting it in a way that really relates the answers the why, and puts it in a way that they can feel good versus like, I don't know, like if you're a kid and you're talking to your parent about why you don't want to do something, and then they're just like, no, you have to do it, you have to eat your vegetables. And I, with my 4-year old, I was like,
Mhm.
how do you get a child to do something that they really don't want to do? And you can yell at them and like force them to do it through fear, and through the eyes of the child you can see how like they can like instantly like recoil. They'll just like shut down and start
Right.
crying, and then they might do it, but then the next time like they're scared of you, they don't want to talk to you, and like you just made like an even like farther barrier, between you and that person. Similar to the artist, you're like, hey, or then the alternative to the child is like, you really need to eat your vegetables. It helps you become really strong so you can go and play at the park, and you love to play at the park, right? So like, let's eat your vegetables. And I'm like, oh, okay. Um, so with the artists, it's like, hey, I know you don't want to post, but we need to post so you can have a successful career and you can do XYZ. So like, maybe let's figure out the ways that we can get the post that we need, but that you're going to feel comfortable. And what would make you feel more comfortable? Like, how can we make this work for both parties? And I think that is also, to me, the the wellness, mindful approach to things. I like to expand my personal definition of like what wellness is. Um, it's more to me than just like having therapy or even doing yoga. Um, in my yoga practice, like the the yoga is 10% of it is like physically on the mat. It's breathing, stretching, meditating,
Mhm.
but the real yoga is like out in the world, and how you can apply this like equanimity and neutrality to everyday situations to be able to like breathe and not react to things, and but approach things head on and in the most sort of like neutral way as possible, even through the most extreme challenges. Like, that to me is the yoga. So I try to apply that, and I think Gwyn does too. Like, the leaders at this company, we try our best to see both sides, but then do what's needed from a business sense, and do what's needed to ultimately benefit the artists. And there are times in which there's friction,
Yeah,
but we through friction and through challenges, there's also solutions, and there's also ways to grow and expand and to continue to learn. I think we learn from it, as executives and leaders. The artists learn from it, the managers learn from it, and we can all come back to the table, see what worked, what didn't work, and what we need to do collectively to keep on, improving.
right. Agreed. And I guess in all of that, what are some of like the biggest challenges that you've witnessed artists face when it comes to, marketing their music, and how do you address those challenges with them?
Yeah, I think I think artists really, one, tend to struggle with what we're talking about, is like the self promotion side of things, um, until they no longer need to self promote. Like, until you're big enough or you're across that hump that you're a household name, you can post a weird selfie and your fans just love it. Then like, it's smooth sailing from there. But until you get to that point, everybody sort of like wants to be a little mysterious. Everybody wants to look really cool on Instagram and have a perfectly like curated feed, or just like have this sort of like hidden secret artist kind of cool curated vibe. But when it's time to like do the pre-save, swipe up, buy tickets here, uh, engaging with fans in the comments, doing all of like the checklist kind of things, marketing, social media, release checklist 101 things. I think,
Mhm.
artists really struggle to do that. Quite frankly, I struggle to do it when it comes to like promoting myself. So like, I completely empathize and understand like what's going on, in an artist's head, and just like what we said, try to like really meet in the middle, try to find ways where they can feel comfortable and confident within like the content style that they're doing, and just really feeling comfortable in like the reasons why. Like, okay, like, I'm uncomfortable in doing this, but I need to, because I need to sell tickets to my tour. I feel really good about this song and I want to share that with the world. So let me
Mhm.
do the extra push for pre-saves, etc. I think artists, when it comes to marketing, I think they also struggle with the internalized sense of self when they don't get playlists. And
And
just the
how
hit
important
that
do you think playlisting is?
that it's such a small. I don't want to say it's small, but it's not the full, pie. It's not the full picture. I think especially when you're at the emerging phase of your career. Even right now, what we're seeing at Guin is on some of the projects, we're seeing a great amount of streams that are coming through algorithmic, through radio, through discovery, and when it comes to releases that still have like a healthy amount of editorial. People are truly discovering the artist in other ways outside of playlists. I know for myself, as a consumer, I'm not beholden to these playlists. Like I use them as some sense of like, recommendations to see what are like the wide array of artists that are releasing on a particular sort of weekly cycle. Let me look at this playlist to see like sort of what's the new music. But if I'm going to search for an artist, I'm going to search for an artist, or I'm going to be playing something in the background, passively listening while I'm working. Something that's going to come on radio that I like, and then I'm going to heart it. I'm then going to go to the artist page, follow them if I really like them, follow them on Spotify, and then go to their Instagram and see where I can consume more. Um, and playlist is sometimes it's only 1 to 2 weeks, of if you get New Music Friday, and everybody loves getting New Music Friday. I feel like
Right,
that's the biggest thing. Thursday night, Friday morning, depending on what side of the coast you're on. If you scroll down New Music Friday, you don't get New Music Friday. It's like, who am I as an artist? I, you
right,
know, I didn't make it. You only get New Music Friday for 1 week. And then if that's where the majority of your streams are coming from, and then you drop off a cliff, what's going to happen then? So I really like to, have our artists focus on the bigger picture, focus on fan engagement strategies, focus on content strategies that they can do themselves and not be beholden to the playlist. And then I think, then you have a stronger case when you are pitching to the playlist. You're showing your own data, you're showing your own marketing plan that doesn't quite uh, rely on that DSP. Those are the things that the DSP wants to see. Like outside of this playlisting, what are you doing to sustain and to carry this playlist? What are you doing to convert the listeners that you'll pick up from this playlist? How are you bringing them into your world, and how are you going to continue to sustain them as fans, so your numbers don't drop off a cliff once we turn this playlist over in a week's time? So when I like to try to expand artists and managers sort of like expectations and on what playlists truly mean, and how we can focus on some of the more tactical things before we put all of our eggs in a playlist basket.
right. Agreed. Thank you. Do you have any advice that you would give to an emerging artist that isn't even necessarily signed to a label to build their careers and also maintain their well-being in the music industry?
Yeah, I'll focus on the first part of the
Mhm.
question. um, I think, I don't know, the thing that just popped in my head is finding ways to make people care. Um, Sometimes I think when it comes to, again, like artists posting or not posting rather, um, you have to be able to make a fan care, make an executive care. Um, and if you aren't even promoting yourself to make someone care, then like why should anybody else sort of like care and pay attention to your music and to your art? Um, I feel like for artists, like if it's something that they truly believe in, if it's truly that being an artist is the highest expression of themselves, and this is what they want to do. Um, Not only for money, but it's like I need to do this because this is this is me. This is me telling my story. This is a version of myself that I want to get out to the world. This I want to inspire others, etc. If you truly believe in it, then believe in it enough to make other people believe in that vision. I think the artists that I truly love, um, I I believe in their story, their mission, what they stand for enough where I'm then reposting their assets and I'm letting my community know that, hey, I really care about this artist and I think you should too. Or I'm going to tell my friends, like, hey, you should really listen to this artist because, like, I think you would really like them. And I think sometimes that signal um, comes from the artist first, obviously. So that's one thing. Secondly, to then take care of your mental health, because I think even within that dance of having to promote yourself, it can be very disheartening once you aren't getting enough likes and the feedback loop like isn't there. So what I've done and I cultivate this through mindfulness and meditation is to clear out the noise and to do things that are like directly from the heart and that have like no uh, expectation of the outcome. So, like, if this is truly coming from my heart, then I don't care if it gets any likes. I don't care if it gets any reposts because I'm doing this to do this. And I think when people have like such strong conviction, such strong knowing, um, that the other stuff then doesn't even matter. It's an add-on at that point. It's cool. Okay, great. Like people love it. That's amazing. People hate it or don't even respond to it. That's also cool because I don't care. I'm doing this for me, myself, and me alone, and I'm my own critic. I'm my own boss. So if I'm happy, then if anybody else is happy, that's just another additive to it. So, um, and of course, it's very easy. It's part of the human experience to like fall off that path and to want that validation, but to be able to like reel it back and to put things into your own perspective because you are sort of like running your own race, I think is important. So yeah, those are the two things I would say.
Thank you. And I guess next, what has been, what brought you into the startup world after working with a lot of, larger companies, and what has been the difference that you've seen now coming into, Gwyn, and being a very young company compared to working at Snapchat or United Masters?
Yeah, I feel like there's pros and cons of both larger companies, smaller companies. What I found is I really love the intimacy and the community of small teams. The fact that we, have a small curated roster that we can, move at the speed of a dime to, either sign an artist, to develop a campaign for an artist versus some of the red tape and bureaucracy that you might have to go through at bigger companies. Um, there's yeah for me where I'm at in my career right now, having been at some of the bigger places, it's a breath of fresh air to be able to work with a team that is so close and immediate, and the fact that we can just get on Slack and start a huddle, and you have the whole team right there to move on something. It feels really good versus like having to get approval from headquarters. And when I was at TikTok, our headquarters was in China, so it's just like
Mhm.
layer after layer of budget approvals and priorities and goals and other departments, and it made it hard to like truly have an idea, pitch it, and then within 48 hours, sometimes 24 hours, like you're doing it. Um, so yeah, those are some of the reasons why I love working at a small team.
Great. And how is it balancing being, a dad at the same time? 'Cause I think the startup hours are definitely not a traditional 9 to 5. So how do you, be present with your son and your wife at home, um, while balancing
It's
this crazy industry?
that is something that I'm frequently trying to navigate. Um, it's what I do like about the small team is that I think we're very open to parenthood. We have another employee here who has a child, and she has him on most Zoom meetings, and if she's camera off, or me if I need to go pick up my son from school, which today I do. And um, yeah, there's like this understanding of like the lives that we have like outside of work, um, and how they really affect how we do show up at work, because our children are sometimes right there on the Zoom with us in the
Right.
background. So yeah, what I do, I try to be as present as I can when I am with him. Having moments where my phone is down, but then I'll pick right back up either at the end of the night or first thing in the morning. He's getting older now, so he's 4, so he understands more of what I do. I think
Mhm.
sometimes it's like, and our other coworker, her son is so young; he's not even 1 yet. So sometimes like that in itself parenting is challenging in so many ways, and every new phase it's a new challenge. So while sometimes things are so hard in the beginning because they're so young, you're breastfeeding, but then it's easier in some ways because they can't talk, they don't know words, like
Right.
they don't
Yeah.
have context. Then when they do start walking and talking, then my dad's like, sometimes when I'm like, oh, I can't put you down to sleep tonight, I have to catch up, do some work at night. And he's like, no, no work at night. Like, you don't work when the sun is up, like, or when the sun's down, like, come to bed. And so, but now he's starting to understand, like, okay, dad needs to work at night because he dropped me off at school this morning, or my wife is, trading off time with him. So it is a challenge, but I do love it. What I do love is that my son loves music, so
Well, it's
he does think it's yeah, it's he loves me playing the music, loves dancing to it, and then when I go to concerts and take him with me, he does love that. Starting to get jealous when I do go out to concerts and stuff at night, and he can't come.
does he come with the headphones
So
or without the headphones?
comes with the headphones, but
Yeah.
inevitably headphones come off at some
Mhm.
point.
That's
Or he'll be like, "This is boring," and we'll just try to be like watching
yeah,
YouTube like at a concert or something. But yeah, parenthood is has been a big joy and blessing, although very challenging at times. But
right.
that is life
That's true. But it's good that he can kind of, I guess, see part of the world that you're in music and develop his own appreciation for it. I remember my mom, I think the first concert my parents took me to was a Shakira concert, and it was
wow.
before the headphones were a thing. So I think I ended
Yeah,
up falling asleep like 30 minutes in, but I do remember seeing her from afar, and I think it like seeds, the appreciation of what your parents like, and then kinda developing your own love of music later on.
for sure. Yeah, my first concert that like I vividly remember was Janet Jackson,
Oh, wow.
and I was like 5, and it changed my whole life. I was like,
Mhm.
"Whoa, like, this is incredible."
Yeah,
Um,
that's an amazing first concert.
Yeah, it was good. I got in trouble at school the next day. It was that album where she was like naked and
Oh, no.
had the and I wore
You
this
wore the
shirt this
T-shirt? And your parents were
and
like,
they
"That's okay."
I get like they
I
didn't
love
say
that.
anything. It was so normal. And then at school
Yeah.
they were just like, "What are you wearing?" Like, turn that inside out. And I was like, "What?" Like I went to the Janet show last night
Yeah.
and I thinking about, Patrick
Mhm.
with the Gwyn sweatshirts.
Favorite.
I was like,
Yeah.
if I had that shirt, I know that that would be like one of the most fire vintage like tees. I like saw some on
Mhm.
YouTube and like not on YouTube on eBay because I was like I want to find that shirt.
Yeah.
Because it was so big when I was a kid. It was like a double XL or something. I know now it would be like perfect.
Yeah.
Those tees are going for like 2,000, three
No
thousand dollars online.
way.
Yeah,
That's
they're a lot.
wild.
So yeah,
Wow. Can't
if
pick it
I
up
need
maybe in
to,
your parents' garage or something?
they move so many times.
Oh,
I always ask, I'm like, where is that Janet shirt? And they're like, I have no clue.
yeah. Damn.
But my aunt, who I mentioned at the beginning, she has this vintage. It's either Michael Jackson or it's like a Jackson 5.
Mm.
I think it's Jackson 5, like Victory Tour varsity jacket.
Wow.
And she was like, "You're not getting this until I die." And I was like, "Please put it in the will because like
Yeah, Brandon
I
gets the
need
jacket.
I need that jacket."
Yeah. I feel like those kinds of things just need to be, like, framed and not touched, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
like
God
I
forbid you
wouldn't touch
spill
it.
something on it, how do you fix it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. Yeah, I need that.
Yeah. So the last question, that I like to do on the Guin Huddle episode is an icebreaker question. And
Okay.
so for today's episode, your question is, um, balancing the role of being the VP of artist wellness and marketing, what is your opinion on the hustler's mentality, specifically in the music industry?
Interesting. Um, Hustler's mentality. Ooh, I think it's all about balance. That's what I learned. Like you to be successful in this industry, you definitely need to hustle. You need to, really be on your game. You need to be quick. You need to seize opportunities that are presented in front of you. You need courage. You need grit. And that to me is all a part of hustling. I think that there's like a toxic and like destructive side of hustling, that where I saw some of that mentality, but I didn't see like the balance of it, in the awareness of it, like where ego comes into play, where now, like you're so focused on the hustle and yourself that you don't you take advantage of people, you treat people like garbage, you manipulate and lie and cheat and steal to like win.
Mm,
Those things aren't cool, and those aren't necessary to hustle. Like you can hustle in a kind way, you can hustle in a conscious way, you can hustle in a way that doesn't hurt yourself or others, that doesn't ruin your reputation or burn bridges. So I'm all for hustler mentality and spirit, but doing it the right way. Um, uh, yeah.
good. Thank you. Great answer. Cool. Well, that's all I have for today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.